Hey K-popers, and welcome back to Hallyu. I'm really excited for this week's deep dive, which is all about how our favorite idols actually make a difference in the world. This deep dive was actually requested by Kai, one of Hallyu's honorary producers, and I'm so glad it was. And if you want to become an honorary producer or get a deep dive on a subject of your choosing, definitely check out Hallyu's Patreon page in the description of this video. So we're going to start by talking about how idols use their time and resources for good, and then we'll look at some big examples of K-pop stars who've used their voice to make a difference. Next, we'll also see how idols have risked everything to speak out on important issues, and how they've been affecting change on a global scale with their fans. And finally, we'll take a step back to appreciate everything the idols have done to make the world a better place. Before we get started, I want to quickly thank Hallyu's honorary producers. If you want to show off your bias group here, share your pics in weekly videos, and join a vibrant Discord community with watch parties, custom emoji, and more, all you need to do is support Hallyu on Patreon. So as I mentioned in the title of the video, the big question we want to look at today is, do idols actually make a difference in the world? Do they use their fame for good? And I think it's an important question to answer because there's a lot of stigma with idol culture, and I'm sure we can all agree most people are pretty dismissive of K-pop in general. So we're going to take a look at a few aspects where I think idols are making a huge difference in making the world a better place. And please share your thoughts too. This is by no means a comprehensive list. The first area I want to look at is donations, which might seem obvious, but it's very important nonetheless. If you're a successful idol, you've amassed some wealth, and choosing to give back some of that wealth shows a lot of character and integrity. There are countless examples of idols showing their generosity, but I want to highlight a few. First up is IU, who is constantly donating sums of 100 million Korean won or more to various charities, including the Green Umbrella Children's Foundation. If you've tuned into my news videos for a while, you'll know that significant donations from IU are pretty commonplace, like her recent $700,000 donation, but there's even more to it than that. Very frequently, IU will specify that the donation be used to help children from underprivileged homes, perhaps a child who's being raised by their grandparents. Why? Well, if you've seen my IU deep dive, you'll know it's because IU herself was raised with her brother in severe poverty with no hot water in an insect-infested one-room apartment. And this is the case for so many idols. Lisa is spearheading a donation campaign for a cultural facility in her hometown. Kang Daniel is supporting children with disabilities, AOA Seolhyun gave to a deaf school in Seoul, and Suzy paid the entire cost for an event to provide impoverished seniors with blankets and food. Their generosity often earns them a spot among regular philanthropists with the community chest of Korea as well. Idols also donate huge sums of money in celebration of Children's Day and their own birthdays, including many BTS members who have essentially made it a tradition at this point to do so. These idols are specifically using their wealth to break that cycle of poverty and help children who are in a situation that they once found themselves in. We already know how hard idols work and how much they overcome on their way to becoming superstars, and so many of them are working to make sure that what affected them growing up isn't so bad for children right now. And that's not even mentioning the unparalleled generosity we saw from them in 2020, when there were multiple causes that desperately needed support. When COVID first sent the world into lockdown and supplies were limited, countless groups and idols gifted supplies to those who needed it most. As an example, Momoland donated $85,000 worth of masks to low-income families, and feminine hygiene products were also donated by several groups. Of course, 2020 also saw a referendum on racism, and again idols led the way, donating massive sums of money to Black Lives Matter and other anti-racism organizations. BTS and Big Hit Entertainment led the way in this regard by a big margin, donating $1 million to help end systemic racism in the US and around the world. There's no doubt that idols have stepped up to the plate with generous donations of money and their time, and it has made a huge difference to those who need it most. But bringing about change in the world takes more than just money. It takes time and effort, as well as using your fame and your voice to shed light on global issues. And again, I'm going to talk about a couple notable examples here, but there's plenty more, so please share some of your favorites in the comments. The first shining example of this is the late Jonghyun, who is a beacon of hope for youth in general and specifically for the LGBTQ+ community. Jonghyun was a fearless critic of the resistance to social progress that he saw in South Korea, even back in 2013. Despite backlash from online trolls and conservative groups, Jonghyun used his fame and reach for good by personally responding to a bisexual and transgender college student who was calling out some discrimination in her own community. He praised that student for, quote, speaking out that different doesn't mean it's wrong, and he encouraged a wave of subsequent discussions supporting LGBTQ+ rights among student populations. Jonghyun was also a voice for youth on several occasions, one notable time being when Nepal was devastated by an earthquake in April of 2015. He rallied his fans to support the children in Nepal who were affected and had lost their homes and their schools. He also spoke out for youth at home in Korea, where on his birthday he paid tribute to victims of the Sewol ferry disaster, pleading with his followers to, quote, please remember these children. IU has also given of herself to help youth in South Korea. She was very involved in anti-bullying campaigns with the Seoul police, so much so that not only was she given the title of honorary member of the police force, but a year later in 2014 she was promoted to honorary senior member of the force. And of course there's BTS. The Bangtan Boys have been at the forefront of social good for a number of years. I mean, just recently they met with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in to receive their certificates as special presidential envoys for future generations and culture. BTS have done extensive work with UNICEF and the United Nations, including a speech as part of the UN's Generation Unlimited campaign. In this speech, RM shared very personal stories about his own struggles and empower young people to find their voice and to make a difference. They were also front and center at the 75th General Assembly's event on protecting future generations amidst the COVID-19 crisis, where each member gave heartfelt messages of hope. In fact, just recently they recorded a performance of Permission to Dance inside the UN General Assembly Hall, an absolutely astounding feat which shows how much the UN values their commitment to helping youth around the world. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their focus on self-love and being true to yourself, which is woven beautifully into their music at every turn. BTS, along with so many prominent K-pop stars, have proven they're brilliant examples of socially conscious celebrities. They're using their fame to push social progress forward, especially at home in the historically conservative South Korea. And building off that, another thing that idols have the unique ability to do is to use their platform and status to speak out and shine a light on issues that are important to them. With such big followings, idols can be the spark that starts the ball rolling to remove stigma on social issues, and those that do are extremely courageous in sticking their neck out and risking their own careers and public image to do so. And out of an abundance of caution, I do want to give a trigger warning because some of these examples do include sensitive topics and tragic events. The first example is with CL, who, as we all know, has been a powerful female idol for over a decade. During the tumultuous events of 2020 surrounding the murder of George Floyd, CL shared a powerful open letter with the public. In it, she shared personal stories of how she herself was inspired by African American artists when she was younger and how she modeled her own style after them. She went on to boldly call out racism against African Americans as well as Asians living in America, saying, quote, "We must stand up together as one, helping them fight for justice." CL made her voice heard and position unmistakably known during a time where everyone's views were under the microscope. And then there's Sunmi, who is also incredibly brave in sharing her own struggles and speaking out against mental health stigma. During the December 16th episode of the Mnet show Running Girls, Sunmi opened up to fellow female idols about being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, a mental illness which, among other things, makes it difficult to self-regulate your behavior and your emotions. In the public eye, BPD is one of the most stigmatized mental illnesses due to many people mischaracterizing it as multiple personality disorder. Sunmi was extremely brave to not only share her own diagnosis, but also to share that it does get better with proper treatment and encouraging others to seek help. Add on to that the fact that she even released a single called Borderline, and Sunmi has been a big factor in helping people who are suffering to open up about their struggles and to get help. Along those same lines, Eric Nam and Day6's Jay have also played a role in making it okay to have anxiety and to get help to cope with it. As we know, both artists have in the past taken time off to address their own anxiety, and they were very open about their experiences on Eric Nam's podcast. In fact, they even shared those personal stories in an interview with the Associated Press, where Eric shared the following. "I never thought that I would want to talk to somebody about my mental health, but once you're in that position, I just didn't know really how to deal with it. And so I remember those very isolating kinds of moments that I had had earlier on in my career." And perhaps the most poignant example of a K-pop idol who paid the price for being outspoken on social issues is that of the late FX member Sulli. In the K-pop world, girl group idols are expected to fall in line and play their role, but Sulli was fearless in speaking up when she felt her voice needed to be heard. On countless occasions, Sulli openly shared her own struggles with her mental health and cyberbullying that she experienced as an idol. In an era where dating as an idol was strictly forbidden by almost every label, she was not afraid to talk about romantic relationships. And she was a fierce advocate for women's rights too, including their right to dress as they please, which included many public appearances where Sulli did not wear a bra. Sulli did not conform to the restrictive policies female idols faced, and as a result she was overwhelmed by unfounded criticism from opposers of social progress. As we all know, this led to Sulli tragically taking her own life in October of 2019, paying the ultimate price for being ahead of her time and advocating for a better tomorrow. To us, it may seem easy for an idol to post about a controversial issue and bring attention to it, but there are real consequences to those decisions. Idols risk backlash, hate comments, lost sponsors, and emotional turmoil for boldly speaking out on important issues that matter not just to them, but to millions of people around the world, including their fans. And in doing so, they've made a huge difference in making the world a better place for all of us. And that brings me to the final aspect that I want to talk about, which is that K-pop idols are aware of the influence they have and their ability to affect change. There are so many ways in which music can play a part in our own lives, and in several instances, K-pop artists have used their platform to provide a backdrop for major movements. As an example, I've done an entire deep dive on how Girls' Generation's 2007 debut song Into the New World has become an anthem for change, and how it's been used to unite students against oppressive police crackdowns, to celebrate landmark rulings like the abortion ban reversal, and more. In the wake of the worst modern tragedy in South Korea's history, the Sable ferry disaster, K-pop idols released dozens of comebacks commemorating the victims, making sure their legacy would live on, and giving a voice to the public who demanded answers and change from their government. And these weren't small artists. I'm talking about Red Velvet with One of These Nights, Kim Sung-kyu's Control, FX's Red Light, and others. In the same vein, idols also affect change by their behavior and how they compose themselves to their fans, and this has a massive effect on spurring on further philanthropy. One example that comes to mind is Block B, whose fans did something incredible to celebrate their group back in April of 2015. Their fan club got together and donated a well in Cambodia to celebrate the group's 4th anniversary on April 15th of that year. These fans were inspired by their favorite group to make a difference, and in doing so, they provided people with a water source that would have otherwise required over an hour's journey to reach. And remember earlier how I mentioned BTS's immense generosity with their $1 million donation to Black Lives Matter in 2020? Well, it certainly did not go unnoticed by their fandom army, because within 24 hours, fans had united and matched that donation. Yes, the fandom of BTS themselves donated another $1 million, inspired by the standard their role models had set on the global stage. And as I said before, it's not just monetary. Since BTS is by far the biggest K-pop group, they have the biggest and most organized fandom. And though they do get a lot of flack at times, ARMY put themselves to good use by organizing and mobilizing to provide charity to their own and to others on a regional and local level all around the world. Another aspect I think often gets overlooked too is when some of our favorite idols go on hiatus. Now, I know this wasn't always the case in K-pop, but nowadays there is a good culture at most big labels to acknowledge mental health issues like anxiety and to provide idols with the time and the rest that they need when they need to take a step back. And as a fan, that's huge. If you're suffering from depression or another mental illness and you see one of your biases going on hiatus to deal with their own anxiety, it shows you that it's okay to acknowledge you need help and you need time to recover. In older generations of K-pop, hiatuses were somewhat looked down upon, but now in my view they're playing a big part in breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. So hopefully it's clear to us all now just how important K-pop idols are and how they do make a lasting difference in the world. People may dismiss K-pop as just another fad or idol culture, but as fans of K-pop we know that's lazy and simply not true. Idols are using their wealth all the time to donate to causes that are near and dear to them and to communities that need the help most. They don't have any responsibility to help those in need, but they do anyways, giving not just their money but their time and their voice too. There are so many examples of idols using their voice to keep pushing social progress forward and to add weight to important issues at home and abroad. And perhaps most important of all, they're affecting change in the public. BTS, IU, and countless others are inspiring their fans around the world to be like them and to help in any way they personally can. Bottom line, as K-pop fans, we know that K-pop is more than just another genre of music, and our idols are more than just superstars. They're guiding lights, illuminating the way forward to a better future. And that brings this week's deep dive to a close. What do you think is the biggest way idols leave a lasting impact on the world? Do you know some examples of philanthropy that I didn't mention in the video? I'd love to hear all the examples of idol generosity in the comments below. As always, thanks so much for watching this deep dive, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss all the great K-pop content coming your way right here at Hallyu. This has been deep dive number 73, How Idols Make a Difference.